Good day, everyone, and welcome to this, what I believe will be a very engaging, informative, and enjoyable conversation. I am Jan Bray with the National Association of Workforce Boards that represents all the local workforce boards across the country and is engaged in the workforce ecosystem that helps it's about economic mobility. And that's what we're about. And it is my absolute pleasure today to be talking to Marie McIntosh, who is the president and CEO of EmployIndy, which is located in Indiana, of course. And EmployIndy has done quite a bit with apprenticeship. And so we're going to have a conversation about why, what, how, and the results of it. So Marie, thank you for joining me. I'm really pleased to have this conversation with you. So 25 words or less. Tell us about EmployIndy.
First of all, just thank you for the opportunity to be a part of the conversation today. EmployIndy is a workforce intermediary, a workforce board, a nonprofit. We do all of our work, as you said, Jan, just to ensure that we're creating economic prosperity, mobility for the citizens of Indianapolis proper, our community, our capital city here in Indiana.
Yeah, well, great. And I've had the pleasure of meeting you and talking to you at other events and all. So I'm just thrilled to have this chance to really delve down into it. So let me ask about EmployIndy. How do you integrate apprenticeship into your strategic plan, and why did you begin to look at apprenticeship programs? I mean, that's just one of the work-based learning experiences. So what brought you to this point?
I think it's a great question. Our strategic plan focuses on interventions that we believe work in our community, and we work hard to not be overly driven by, certain funding streams, but really where are their needs in our community? Where do we sort of double down on what we know works? And so at EmployIndy, we focus on 4 pillars of work, and the first pillar is job quality. We're trying to make sure that businesses are as focused on good jobs as they can be. And our business partnerships team works with those businesses to consult with them and help them to have better outcomes in terms of the jobs that are on offer to people in our community. We obviously focus on connection. I would say if there's one thing that workforce boards do, it is work to try to connect, residents who are looking for their next, career opportunity to the businesses who have those different types of opportunities. So we do that work. We also, of course, are very involved in training and coaching across our ecosystem and really helping our partners to deliver quality services in that space. And career connected learning or work-based learning, and where apprenticeships falls for us is that last pillar. And the thing about that is that in some ways it almost crosses over all of the other pillars of work. You have to have people having opportunities to really experience work when they're still in a training environment, to make sure that they're getting on the right track for a career, and that they understand what the possibilities might be for their future more realistically. And so for young people and for adults alike, we believe that a model like apprenticeships is one that is a win-win-win for the individual human, for the business, and for our community.
So as a workforce board, what is your role in the apprenticeship? There's lots of roles people
Yeah,
play. So
sure.
what does EmployIndy do with apprenticeships?
So I would say we have 2 roles today, and it's always evolving in our world. EmployIndy, we are at the end of the day a convener. We're business led, and part of what we try to do is understand the needs of business. And so apprenticeship is one of many tools that can be offered to the business community to help them think about new ways to build their talent pipelines. And so originally we kind of were involved in apprenticeship, thinking about adults more than young people, because in some of our trade spaces, they started to really find that they have deficits in the number of talent coming in. And so we were working with them to find new ways to engage people from our community to understand the opportunities that could exist, for instance, in an electrician apprenticeship, or in a plumbing apprenticeship, HVAC, that sort of thing. So and what we know is that we focus, of course, like most workforce boards, on helping those who are underrepresented in our community. And we really focused on how we could help those businesses or those labor unions to recruit more diverse, folks into the roles for apprenticeship around Indianapolis. So, that's one area where we remain really engaged with our construction partners, with our labor union partners, and in working to expand, especially in this time where there's so much growth, at least in Indianapolis, more infrastructure that's being built. We've got IU Health, a huge building going up, a whole district. We need a lot of construction support, and we really try to make sure people in the community are getting access to those jobs. So like we have Youth Build as a grant. A lot of workforce boards would understand that work that we do with young people in the community. And we've created this approach where young people who are graduating from Youth Build are able to get into a pre-apprenticeship program and then into an apprenticeship role after they successfully complete that series of training. And we think that has a lot of promise for the future and really diversifying certain industries. But then you might be asking, like, well, what about youth? And workforce boards, we really work in that 16 to 24-year-old space when we talk about young people. And what happened in our situation is that some of the requirements at our state level were changing with our Department of Education, where they were starting to require more work-based learning and ask for young people to have more experiences while they were still in high school. And we became engaged with a number of local high schools in helping them to bring more businesses into the classroom across this continuum of experiences. We called it the talent-bound experiences. We still do it to this day, where we help young people connect with businesses on like a very exploratory level, all the way up to like an experience level. So the business might go in and do a career fair, but they also might offer an internship or an apprenticeship. And it was in that space, as we were building those relationships with schools, that we were invited to a table to think about what a model of youth apprenticeship might look like in our community. And it's grown tremendously since we first engaged in this work in 2018.
Well, I know that, so let me just follow up on that. I know that Indiana just announced a statewide apprenticeship initiative, which, I actually found fascinating. So two questions related to that. What is the goal of this initiative, and what role did EmployIndy play with that? And I guess a third part that I'll ask as you're talking about it, how did that benefit EmployIndy, as well as, the audiences you're trying to meet and deal with?
Well, it's a very nascent strategy, what's been released as a statewide strategy at the moment. But it is called the Indiana Apprenticeship Pathway, or our iLab group. There's a lot of different names for it, but here's what it is. The Indiana Apprenticeship Pathway is a group of collaborators who work together across business, across government, across education, and other sectors. Nonprofits, of course, have been involved as well. And what we're looking to do is see a world in our future by 2034 where we have 50,000 youth apprentices in our community working in a variety of different occupations, and ones that are sort of in demand for our state, but won't be that different, I think, from a lot of other states around the country. It's finance roles or business operation roles. We're looking at IT roles, life sciences, healthcare roles. And the goal here is, how do we shift systems in our state to be able to allow for young people to have really meaningful apprenticeship experiences starting their junior and senior years of high school. So the role that EmployIndy played in that is we've run a pilot program in this space before the apprenticeship, like the big goals had been established, and all of these leaders are realizing a lot of the systems that need to be adapted and shifted to allow for high school students to really be able to add value to the businesses around the state, and for that to be also value add for the high school kids. So what we did is we launched an apprenticeship program in 2020 which was a rough year to launch. That was the year of the pandemic. But what we did is we partnered with about 40 business partners in our community and other intermediaries and also our schools, and devised this system based on models coming out of Switzerland and Colorado, where we would essentially ensure that young people are having 10 to 20 hours of work each week, where they're also earning related credit for college, and trying to create additional pathways to prosperity for a bunch of young people in our community. The truth of the matter is that, and I think most workforce boards will know this, I can't imagine it's very different in other states, but at the end of the day, only 30% of people in our community who go through a traditional degree program are making it through and getting into a good job at the end. So we're losing 70% of young people today are a little bit lost in what they might want to do next with their lives and their careers. And when you think about economic competitiveness, you think about the opportunity for our business community to really harness a lot of that potential for young people and help them, help the businesses to be able to grow, but also help the young people to see a path for themselves. It leads to more education, it leads to more talent and better outcomes, again, for our state in the long run. So I feel like I'm rambling too much, but I want to just,
No, I
share.
mean, yeah, you guys have done a significant amount. So when you say you launched apprenticeship programs, I mean, there's lots of steps in the process of developing, getting it approved,
Yes.
implementing, et cetera. What role, and it could probably depend on the employer, but what role primarily does EmployIndy play in that?
So we call ourselves an implementation intermediary with our business partners. So what we do is we work with the business partner first to just make sure they want this intervention as the right thing for their organization. And they'll say to us, we think we want 2 apprenticeship slots in business operations or something like that. And then we work very closely with them to onboard them to our talent matching system. We work closely with them to help them build out their job description for this apprenticeship pathway, to register the apprenticeship with the U.S. Department of Labor. We do all of that sort of preparatory work with the business at the same time that we're focused in the schools on understanding with the schools which students are interested and recruiting them to be ready to interview with businesses to get placed into that apprenticeship program. And that's just the beginning. Then it's a 2 to 3 year experience for young people. And then we have a team of individuals in sort of a more direct service delivery mode than I think what some workforce boards do today. But we took on the challenge of essentially managing the business relationship and the relationship with the young person in the school, with having client success managers who ensure that over the course of those 3 years, that the students are making progress on the training plan that's been registered with the Department of Labor, that the businesses are happy with the progress that's being made, that no changes need to be made to the related instruction that they're learning, all of that sort of thing. And we also troubleshoot, barrier bust any issues that are coming up for a young person as it relates to transportation, as it relates to conflicts with their schedule, whatever the case may be. We're trying to, reduce the friction essentially between the business and the young person to allow for the magic to happen, where it, transforms how they look at building their talent pipelines, and it transforms how that young person, looks at their future.
So it almost sounds like there are 2 roles. I'm really bringing this down, but 2 roles that EmployIndy plays. One is an intermediary to the employer, helping
Definitely.
and then almost a case manager to the potential and current apprentice, the young person. Is that a valid way of summarizing it, or is that too neat?
I think it's a fair way to summarize it. The hard part probably for me is that I'm not sure that it really encompasses the complexity of some of the work that we have discovered over time. I think we are equally case managers with the business in an interesting way. When you say the word intermediary, Jan, what I think you're meaning is sort of that initial conversation to connect the business to the initiative to help them get their apprenticeship set up, like all of that work that you have to do up front.
Right.
What I want to make sure this audience knows is that we stay with that business throughout the entirety of those apprenticeship experiences and continue to work with supervisors, continue to work with managers, shifts in the business, where leaders leave and move to other roles. We try to provide that stability so that the relationship between the business and the school remains strong, and the value proposition for both remains strong as well.
So do you, have you had a lot of, the only right thing is pushback from employers about dealing with youth? And, what has been those conversations, and how do you help them overcome that concern?
I think the short answer is yes. There's a lot of hesitation about the capability, the capacity of 16 and 17-year-olds today in our community. And what we share with businesses from our perspective is that, we believe in many ways the future of education must be businesses being, co-creators of talent and co-producers of talent. The days of where they were just able to, seek out from another place and attract talent, those are waning, and they really have to play a more active role in building the talent pipelines they want to see. So that is what we preach to them in some ways. And I think that the businesses who we support them in, as the reality is that they see struggles. There are sometimes policies that are in the way of young people working in certain sectors. They're mostly institutional policies. There's often concerns about liability, things like this. And we really work with our partners in the ecosystem to help businesses understand where the line is drawn, where they have the opportunity to shift how they think about young people working in their workplace, and adjust rules accordingly, adjust policies accordingly. So we help them in that space as they're considering, just sort of policy changes that may have to happen at their organization. Everything from, an institution-wide policy that young people who are under the age of 18 can't be, have access to certain information, can't be on a certain work floor, whatever the case may be, all the way from those kinds of policies to like an HR policy where they don't have the right code for like a young person who's going to be with them for 3 years, 2 to 3 years, however long the apprenticeship is, and they don't know how to code them in the HR system. Like there are, I think, very practical issues that can exist for businesses that they have to solve. And so I, in that sense, have a lot of empathy for the business community as they work to set up their systems to be, ready to be co-producers of talent. But then what we do to support them, besides providing, expertise, connecting them with the right folks in the field who have dealt with this sort of, barrier to a policy before, we also acknowledge that supervisors haven't worked with a lot of 16-year-olds and offer like training and modules on how to help them to be ready to manage a younger, population coming in. We try to give information about Gen Z slang, like whatever the case may be, to help bridge that gap that could exist. And then also have those case managers or those client success managers who are around to help, adjust or answer any questions as it comes along.
So you guys are really all in on this, which I think is great. And it sort of has to and I know it's, it's only been a few years, actually, 2020, since you guys really gotten all in on it. But I guess, the results so far, have we improved the talent pipeline? Has it helped,
Sure.
Youth getting engaged, employers having workers? What's been the results so far?
So I think I would argue that we are at a tipping point in our state in terms of results. We across the state, there are other intermediaries like EmployIndy really focused on youth apprenticeships. And to date, we've had 500 plus apprentices across the state who have, been a part of this new modern model of delivering apprenticeships in multiple sectors. And I think the results are, life-changing for the individual students. These are young people who maybe weren't prepared for a future where they might, consider certain jobs or certain types of occupations. I think it's created more equitable opportunities for a lot of young people to consider like what careers they might want to choose once they finish their apprenticeship. Some of them have remained employed with the company, so it is addressing that talent pipeline issue. But honestly, the majority of young people didn't think they were going to go on to some sort of degree program, and as a result of the apprenticeship have seen the light on what their future could look like, and are going back to receive additional training, sometimes through their company, sometimes of their own accord. And that we like to talk about how this is, there are many paths to success with this model. And I think the success for young people is undeniable. I think for the business community, and the successes there, what we've seen is a little bit more of a mixed bag, which we think is important when you're in the early stages of learning about how a model like this that is truly disruptive could work. And so we have seen some businesses fully embrace the apprenticeship model and see it as such a value to their pipeline planning that they continue to take multiple apprentices a year. And we have seen some businesses who have paused on it because they didn't feel like they had quite the right model within their own organization, and they're having to regroup and consider the right, do they have the right kind of curriculum, the right sort of standards in place. And that is really where the Indiana apprenticeship pathway work, I think, will take us to the next level. They're developing talent associations that we believe we will partner with closely, where the talent associations will help define curriculum for it. It's pretty much sector partnerships with apprenticeships at the core of what they're doing. And so they'll define more clearly the curriculum for certain occupations across the state. And then we will be able at a regional level to work with the businesses to essentially ensure that that curriculum, that programming is being delivered with quality at each business that participates. So I think that in terms of the other important thing to say about results is not only do I believe this has changed students' lives, and I think changed some businesses to really think about talent in a new way. I mean, I have one colleague in mind who always says this is a no-brainer for us. We see such a graying of our workforce, and so many people are going to retire, that this is the way to bring young people into our organization. And so there's some really powerful testimonials that we've seen over time. But for me, one of the most important, I think, results is like the systemic change that I believe we will see as a result of like all of this collaboration and work in Indiana. I really think that at the government level, we are on the cusp of a lot of changes right now, where high school redesign is almost a done deal in Indiana, which allows for more flexibility for work-based learning to happen over more days in a certain schedule. There's just a little bit more flexibility for young people to participate should they want to. But beyond that, we have our legislature who has enacted more funding to go towards career coaching for young people, and more funding to go toward career scholarship accounts, and some of these different mechanisms to really, I think, create incentives for students and parents alike to consider equally great options for post-secondary success. So I'm excited about that too.
Yeah, well, there's a lot. What's helpful is the state is really recognizing and stepping up, to do a lot, and that is allowing EmployIndy to really move with this and run forward. So let me ask one final question. What advice and insight can you share with other workforce boards I mean, every state's different, we know that, but what would you suggest to them if you had to give them one or two pieces of advice?
Well, by now, Jan, that I work to be, brief in my comments and sometimes don't succeed. So I will try to keep this to like one or two pieces of advice. But I would recommend to workforce boards around the country thinking about this to really be open-minded to new models for apprenticeship, and to understand how existing models, the registered apprenticeship role, can play into those new models. So that would be one piece of advice. I think that as a nonprofit, and I know not all workforce boards are in this situation, but for those who are nonprofits, that we really stuck to what our strategic plan was. You know, we are really committed to ensuring that young people have a positive trajectory into the future. We are committed to ensuring that work-based learning opportunities are increased in our community. And by being forward with that strategic plan, you know, by saying this is something we are really committed to, what happened is we had more philanthropic support outside of traditional state and federal funding. And I think that seed money that we received from really influential foundations in our community helped us to be able to, you know, develop a really impactful apprenticeship model. And my hope is that everyone can learn from some of the you know, trials and tribulations that organizations like ours have had. You know, we partner very closely with CareerWise Colorado, CareerWise USA, and I know that they are doing a lot of work in different markets today. We partner in that space to really ensure that the role of the intermediary can blossom in this space, you know, that we can really make it good. And that wouldn't be possible without, you know, philanthropic investment. So back to like a concise piece of advice for workforce boards, I think it's like, be open to the possibility of collaboration and thinking about new models for how we might do our work in this ever-changing, you know, 21st century economy.
I mean, that's a great way to sum it up. It's, and you're right, and I'm glad you talked about opens up other funding streams that people just don't think about. And, you know, it really does help, and it has done this for employee position workforce boards, as I always think of them as the hub in the economic mobility wheel, because of the relationships and all the services and programs that can be offered, and the understanding workforce boards have about the local economy or the state economy,
Yes.
what can be done. And so what EmployIndy is doing is just right there. It's sort of, it proves my statement right. So I thank you for that. Now, Marie, I thank you for sharing this. This has been really exciting. I have a feeling you might be inundated with a lot of people reaching out, going, tell us more. Can we pick your brain and can we do more? But I congratulate you and your entire team at EmployIndy for what you're doing, because I think it's going to make such a difference. And I think you guys did have a major role in what the state is doing to help with the young people because of what you had already started. So I thank you for sharing today, for taking the time to talk. This has made a difference. And I hope all those who are listening to this really have learned one or two, at least one or two items that will go, we need to think about this. At the very least, as Marie says, it can open up a lot of doors, you know, for the board as well as everyone else. So Marie, thank you. And we will close the program out right now.
Thank you very much.